who has been a leader on really restoring a sense of moral purpose to politics and to life in this country. Robert Kennedy, thank you so much.
Leahy said a moment ago, I have strong ties to the state of Vermont. My wife was raised in this state. We have a house up in Oregon, up in the Northeast Kingdom, and I came up here every year as a kid. It's just that it's wonderful for me being back here, but I'm proud of my ties to this state, and I'm proud of the leadership that this state has all over the country on the issue of environment and democracy with such outstanding leaders as Natalie Kuhn, as Bernie Sanders, as Jim Jeffords, Pat Leahy. This state has been the leader on all of these issues for decades. It's known across the country for its leadership on these issues, and we want to make sure that that leadership continues by sending Bernie to the Senate, by sending Scudder Parker to the governor's office, and of course by sending Peter Welch to represent the state in Congress. And Peter mentioned that he was an RFK fellow, that he started his career in public service fighting racial discrimination in housing in Chicago, and that he's continued to see all of these issues intertwined: the environment, the economy, the prosperity, the corporate control of our country. I have been disciplined over 20 years as an environmental advocate of being nonpartisan and bipartisan in my approach to these issues. I don't think there's any such thing as Republican children or Democratic children. I think the worst thing that can happen to the environment is if it becomes the province of a single political party. But you can't talk honestly about the environment in any context today without speaking critically of this White House and this Congress. This has been the most anti-environmental government that we've ever had in American history, bar none. If you look at NRDC, Resource Defense Council, which is one of the groups in which I work, you'll see listed there 400 major environmental rollbacks that have been promoted or implemented by this administration over the past 6 years as part of a deliberate, concerted effort to eviscerate 30 years of environmental law. It's a stealth attack. The White House has used all kinds of ingenious machinations to conceal its radical agenda from the American public, including Orwellian rhetoric. When they want to destroy the forest, they call it the Healthy Forest Act. When they want to destroy the air, they call it the Clear Skies Bill. But most insidiously, they have put polluters in charge of all of the agencies that are supposed to be protecting us from pollution. The head of the Forest Service is a timber industry lobbyist, Mark Gray, probably the most rapacious in history. The head of public lands is a mining industry lobbyist, Stephen Grau, who believes that public lands are unconstitutional. The head of the Air Division at EPA is utility lobbyist Jeffrey Homestead, who's represented nothing but the worst utility air polluters during his entire career. The head of Superfund is a woman whose last job was teaching corporate polluters how to evade Superfund. The second in command of EPA is a Monsanto lobbyist. The president's chief environmental advisor, the New York Times disclosed a couple of weeks ago, is a guy called Philip Cooney, who works in the White House as head of Council on Environmental Quality, and he's supposed to advise the president on the environmental implications of every bill that he signs and every decision he makes. His last job was as chief lobbyist for the American Petroleum Institute, and his primary occupation, as it turns out, over the past 6 years, has been combing through every scientific document produced by every federal agency and removing damaging information about the oil industry and the coal industry. He suppressed 12 major studies on global warming. His job, in other words, has been to lie to the American public in order to protect the president's corporate paymasters. And there's nothing wrong with having business people in government. It is a good thing if your objective is to recruit competence and expertise. But in all of these situations, these individuals have entered government service not to serve the public interest, but rather to subvert the very laws that they're now charged with enforcing in order to enrich the president's corporate friends and his payroll. And they have imposed enormous diminution in quality of life on the people in this country, including the people of Vermont. Most of us don't know about it, don't make the connection, because we have a negligent and indolent press in this country that has simply let down American democracy. That affect the state of Vermont, and I'm going to just address one industry, which is coal-burning power plants. And in my book, in Crimes Against Nature, I talk about all these different industries that have a chokehold on this administration and have been able to engineer these rollbacks that are having a devastating effect on quality of life in our country. But I just talk about one. I have 3 sons who have asthma. 1 out of every 4 black children in American cities now has asthma. We know that asthma attacks are triggered primarily by bad air, by ozone and particulates, and the principal source of those materials in our atmosphere are 1,100 coal-burning power plants that are burning coal illegally. It's been illegal for 18 years. The Clean Air Act required that they clean up 18 years ago, and many of them did. In Massachusetts and the rest of New England, most of our plants complied with those laws. But about 1,100, most of them in the red states, did not. And the Clinton administration was prosecuting the worst 75 of those plants criminally and civilly for violating the law. But this is an industry that donated $48 million to President Bush during the 2000 cycle and have given $58 million since. One of the first things that George Bush did when he came into office was to order the EPA and the Justice Department to drop all those lawsuits. The top 3 and 4 at EPA all resigned their jobs in protest. Sylvia Lawrence, Bruce Buckheit, and Eric Schaefer. These were not Democrats. These were people who served through the Reagan and Bush administration. The top Justice Department attorney said that this had never happened in American history, where a presidential candidate accepts money from criminals under